time to come out and testify on the administration's bill, your own bill. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Vice Chair Asheville. I want to thank you for your consideration of the EARN bill, E-A-R-N bill. I also want to thank Senator Katherine Klausmeier for her leadership and that of Senate President Mike Miller, who've been working hard on this initiative. And Senate President, Senator Klausmeier, and I all believe that job creation, opportunity, economic growth really all depend on our ability to strengthen Maryland's greatest economic assets, and they are the talents and the skills of our people. There is an economist by the name of Jeffrey Sachs who wrote a book recently called The Price of Civilization, wherein he wrote, solutions to jobs will be found by improving the skills of the workforce, the quality of working life, and the proper functioning of the labor market. And that's what this initiative is about. We know there's no progress without a job. Later today, I'll be testifying before your colleagues on the Veterans Full Employment Act. A lot of veterans returning from active duty with skills who have faced barriers to jobs. In this particular bill, this is really an effort that is driven by employers who say they have jobs that are open, they need more employees with the skills to fill them. And so this EARN bill will help more moms and dads get the skills they need to enter those better jobs. Other states have done this. I understand our neighbors in Pennsylvania have an initiative that is now a $19 million, almost $20 million a year initiative. The EARN bill will help our businesses grow Maryland's economy by improving the skills of our people. It will help our state recruit more global companies to bring their jobs and businesses to Maryland, where they know that there will be creative partnerships that can help them recruit a workforce with the skills they need to do the jobs that they have. We have built up one of the most highly skilled workforces in the country because of the good decisions that so many of you have made through the years, and yet we know that we still have so much more that we can do. Milken Institute ranks us #1 for human capital capacity. Education Week magazine ranks our schools #1 several years in a row. But the reality is too many of the new jobs being created in our economy go unfilled. So the EARN bill's purpose is to bridge that gap between the jobs that are available and the skills that our people have. Business and industry, four-year colleges, community colleges, local workforce investment boards, local government, state government, worker training providers, all have a role to play. The EARN bill will bring needed focus and an ability for these partnerships to be formed and to be sustained. So here's how it would work. Moms and dads looking to obtain new skills for high-demand job sectors would be able, through either our one-stop centers or community colleges and even GED programs, to participate in skills training free of charge. And these skills trainings would be run by employer-led partnerships that bring together the various stakeholders, not to produce more of the degrees that perhaps are not in as high demand, but to produce the sort of training and the skills that are needed right now in construction and advanced manufacturing and cybersecurity and wellness. Other states have shown the way with their successful initiatives. In addition to Pennsylvania, Washington State, and Massachusetts has similar initiatives underway. I really appreciate the partnership that this bill represents with the good work of Senator Klausmeier and President Miller, and those are my opening remarks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Governor, do you intend to stay?
Stay for, yes, sir.
For the whole panel?
Sure.
Okay, we'll just take questions after the panel finishes then. Okay. Who's going to go next? Senator Klausmeier? If you would just, given the condition of your voice, if you would pull the microphone a little closer, please. Senator Klausmeier made a shout out this morning from the dais about manufacturing in the state of Maryland.
Yes, and the governor was lucky enough to get his bus made too. Anyway, I think that the governor outlined the entire bill, and the genesis of this bill was one of NCSL. We were at a working families conference at that conference, we talked about many ways of trying to get people back to work, and working on with Vicki and Delegate Olszewski, and we came up with this idea. And when we got back, it wasn't one of those kind of conferences where you just do a little bit and then come home and forget it a little bit. But we actually worked, and we started meeting, and we got all the interested parties involved. And now we have Valor working with DPED, and we have private partnerships, and it's just going to be a wonderful bill. And several years ago, there was this Maryland Step Clubs were working parents, and there was some of the ideas we got from this particular program, but it was kind of rigid, and this is a little bit more open-ended. So we look forward to working with Valor and DPED and all the interested parties and really making this work. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to, I want to thank the governor for taking this very seriously, because I think that this is something that will help improve our economy, because we always hear jobs, jobs, jobs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretary Howard, do you want to go next?
For the record, Vicki Gruber, Chief of Staff for Senate President Miller. I would like to echo what Senator Klausmeier said. It was a pleasure being a part of the Maryland team at the NCSL Working Families Conference. We worked very hard on this proposal. There was, as Senator Klausmeier mentioned, a bill that became law in 2001. It was called the STEP program, and Senator Middleton might remember this from his work on budget and tax. It was a very successful program, but then as governors changed, it was not funded under the Ehrlich administration, and it sunset. You have a report on your desk that outlines some of the people that were helped by the program, working parents who didn't have the ability to leave their jobs, get training, didn't have the financial ability or even the time to leave work and get training to improve their financial status and the sustainability of their income for their family. The way that the bill came about, and the name itself, Employment Advancement Right Now, follows along that lines, that the people out there working, trying to sustain their families, don't always have the ability to leave their jobs and go back to college. And so the idea of the bill is that we would help support those people and provide training opportunities where they can up-train and advance themselves in the workforce right now, employment advancement right now. The only thing that I would add is, as we came back from the conference, we started to work with Secretary Howie and Assistant Secretary Jensen. We realized that Dollar and the governor with his leadership has been already working on these issues and trying to move this forward. And they brought some very important pieces to the table, not just the back end of the training, but the front end of the working with employers in a regional way, bringing people together, all of our components, which we have excellent components, but bringing them together to work together to identify where are the needs, how do we fill them, and then help working families in the process. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with everyone, and we would ask for your support of the legislation.
Secretary Howard, are you going next?
I'm going next, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it's definitely a pleasure to be here. At the outset, I'd just like to acknowledge that we had to practice collaboration and partnership from the very beginning. This is as you know, this is a collaborative effort between the governor, the governor's policy office, the governor's workforce investment board, Senate President Mike Miller. The list just kind of goes on, but we could not go too far without the leadership and support that Senator Klausmeier has provided over the duration of this process. So we're definitely grateful for all the support that we've been given, and we're really excited by what's going on here. What you have before you that we are advocating for is the true formation of an initiative that is based on industry needs. Industry has defined what skills gaps are in existence, and this is an initiative that is designed to close those skills gaps with effective training and education programs. At the core of what we're doing is it's really a grant-driven program that's going to be competitive, but that at the end of it, we know that we're going to get a series of outcomes that are going to stretch across the state of Maryland, that are going to hit key areas that we're focusing on, which is manufacturing, construction, healthcare, and cybersecurity. But as you read through the bill, it definitely acknowledges and expects that we will receive grant proposals from all areas within the state. So we are very much looking forward to the process and what we're going to get. Now, the final thing I want to share with you is what we expect to see in these plans when they come in. One, we are confident that they're going to capture the demands that the employers have for focusing intensively on the workforce needs of specific industry sectors over a sustained period. And that's going to be something a little bit different perhaps than we've done in the past. We are focusing on sustainability with this model. We have, being an agency such as the Department of Business and Economic Development, we are veterans of state staff and MFR as well. So we have, as you see, we have built into this bill an accountability mechanism to ensure that we talk about what we're doing on a very regular basis and are held accountable for our results. But really what's also at the core of this is the ability of the initiatives that come up to create those pathways for individuals to get to those family supporting jobs that are out there. We know they exist. Many of you have been to job sites throughout the state and you see license plates other than Maryland there. Well, this is our attempt to rectify that and get as many qualified and trained Marylanders going as we possibly can. And the final thing is, we know that industry, within Maryland's industry, we have intrastate competition. Companies have to compete for business. But we also are going to use this initiative to help foster the interstate and global recognition of what it means to be a successful business in the state. It's not just competing against our intrastate neighbor, it's looking outward and forming that regional approach to sustaining and building our economy. So with that, I know we have a lot of speakers after me, I'll turn it over to Secretary Dominic Murray.
Secretary Murray.
Mr. Chairman, Dominic Murray, Acting Secretary of the Department of Business and Economic Development. I thank you all for this opportunity to give my strong support on behalf of the whole Department of Business and Economic Development for the EARN bill. Workforce is the critical part of economic development. For many states, particularly those of us here in Maryland, the quality of the workforce is in fact the #1 factor for successful economic development. Today, Maryland enjoys a good reputation for an educated, skilled workforce, but to remain competitive for new investment, we've got to continually invest in that workforce, and this EARN legislation will do just that. You know, we get a lot of input from our boards and commissions. Over the past 3 years, we've established numerous advisory boards and commissions. We've continually listened to those advisors, primarily business persons from the private sector, and they emphasize the importance of better and more consistent state support for workforce development through the training programs. And it's not just been one group. It's or one industry sector, or one region in the state. It's been across the board. Rural and urban, small businesses, large businesses, defense contractors, cybersecurity, all types of manufacturing. The Economic Development Commission, the Federal Facilities Advisory Board, the Governor's Commission on Small Business, and the Maryland Advisory Commission on Manufacturing Competitiveness have all expressed their concern on this issue. In fact, the Maryland Advisory Commission on Manufacturing Competitiveness voted on December 13th to send a letter to the governor asking for increased funding for workforce training in the fiscal 2014 budget. We work well together with DLLR. While DBED and Dollar have worked together informally on various initiatives over the years, we will work very strongly to develop strategic, targeted industry partnerships with Dollar to identify workforce needs in high-demand occupations. We'll work with the private sector to develop the strategies which address the needs of key industries, all regions across the state. Specific jobs requiring specific skills will be identified through these strategies. EARN will provide funding to train these workers. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I respectfully request your support on Senate Bill 278. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment testifying?
Yes.
If you would just state your name for the record, please.
Thank you. Jeff Fuchs, Chairman of the Maryland Advisory Commission on Manufacturing Competitiveness. I wanted to thank you, Chairman Middleton, and other members of the Senate Finance Committee. I'm throwing my support, of course, behind Senate Bill 278, the EARN program. The commission that I chair was recently reestablished by Governor O'Malley and is supportive of the recommendations of the Task Force on Industrial Job Creation in Baltimore City. My commission and this task force called on the state of Maryland to provide funds related to training activities for upgrading the skills of our employees. This workforce training programs are critically important to industrial businesses with aging workforces that are struggling to keep up with the increasingly technical nature of industrial jobs in the 21st century. Today more than ever, Maryland's economy is producing new jobs which require new skilled workers. For Maryland's workforce to keep pace and fill the jobs being created in this economy, Maryland needs to invest in upgrading worker skills. So as Secretary Murray just said, workforce development is a critical component of every state's economic development strategy. In recent years, we witnessed an unfortunate reduction in state funds for workforce training. We recognize the difficult choices that had to be made during the current recession, but with the economy doing better, it's time for Maryland to restore important investments. The EARN legislation is a positive step towards Maryland's commitment to workforce development. Legislation can help bridge the gap between the existing worker skills and those needed for the 21st century manufacturing workplace. One positive feature of EARN legislation is the strategy to focus on skills training that's targeted in certain industries that result in industry recognized credentials such as certification and apprenticeship certificates. The design of the program to solicit private sector input is another positive element of this legislation. It targets industry sectors such as construction, traditional advanced manufacturing, healthcare, cybersecurity, and more, using a collaborative of nonprofit organizations and community colleges that will compete for these training funds. I believe the demand for the limited funds set aside is going to be high, and that only the best proposals with the most meaningful strategies are going to be funded. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I hope you'll support Senate Bill 278.
Okay. Drew, are you going to testify?
Just here for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Senator Kelly, followed by Senator Kilman.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. It certainly sounds good. I'm interested in knowing who's going to do the RFPs. Will it be a collaborative, putting them out, or will it come from DALA? Who do you expect the grantees to be? Will they be service providers or employers who've got employees needing to be served, or will it be the ultimate beneficiaries, the prospective employees themselves? And finally, who's going to be handling the marketing? How will that be done?
I'll address the first two, Senator. As you see in the bill, one of the key components of it is that a working group will be formed to lay out all of the needs regarding any regulations that will need to be promulgated, as well as the specifications for the RFP. And that is a process that DALA will take the lead on. We have a division of workforce development and adult learning, where a lot of what they do is execute and administer grant programs. So we have that expertise to actually take care of that function. And as far as who's going to receive the grants, we know that we're going to require and ask our local partners at the local workforce investment boards to carry out their fiscal function as far as maintaining and tracking the funding. Who actually winds up applying for them? Again, that will be determined exactly in the planning and in the specifications and workforce process. But this is an industry-led initiative, and so we fully expect that as the teams form, you'll see teams that have a conglomeration of industry partners that will have higher education or community colleges, nonprofit partners, and part of the task is to work out exactly the best way to get the funds to where they need to be. If it's a training initiative that largely resides in a private vendor, then we have mechanisms for that. If it's going to a community college to provide a lot of the training, then we have mechanisms for that as well. Dominic, for the outreach.
DBED has an extensive marketing and communications division, Senator, and we will be highlighting this in all of our communications that are appropriate for when we're talking about workforce and the need for better trained employees in the industries, multiple industries. So whenever we're doing a targeted thing like a contract connections, that when we hook up federal procurement officers with small businesses, we will make sure that this material is available to them.
For employees who are currently on unemployment,
Yes?
is there any direct outreach to them? Will they be able to apply for many amounts in order to pay the tuition to get the certification or the education, maybe at a community college or something?
And I think that being administered by Dollar, their Maryland Workforce Exchange already does that. This will be able, it used to be that DBED had training dollars for companies. Dollars were typically for individuals. What we're trying to do with this bill is bridge that gap so that as our DBED employees go out and speak with companies who identify needs for training and opportunities for training, we will direct them to the Maryland Workforce Exchange. The employees who are looking, or candidates who are looking for work, Dollar is already directing them toward Maryland Workforce Exchange, and we're hoping that that dual agency commitment and focus on MWE will help provide the candidates and the opportunities in the same place.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Kittleman, followed by Senator Pugh.
Thank you very much. Governor, I just want to commend you for doing this. I think it's a great program. I've learned a little bit more about it, and I think it's important for me to say that because there might be other programs coming before us later this session that I will be supporting, and I think it's important that we know that we can work on some things together, and I want to commend you for it and make sure people know that when we agree, I want to commend you on that, and I think that's a very good program. Thank you.
Senator Pugh?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the marketing question. And you mentioned that you'll be rolling it out with some of your other programs. And we're completely aware of all the programs that Dollar institutes throughout the community, but there are also some nonprofit organizations that are not hooked into those particular programs that are out there doing some things that really do need some support. And training workers, whether it's for hospital work or whether it's cybersecurity, but may not be aware through your typical media or marketing strategies. So I would ask that you look outside of the marketing tools that you currently use and see if we can reach out to some of those other folks who don't have access to some of the things that you're doing.
That's fair, Senator. Yes.
Okay. Senator Sines?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Governor, members. I do applaud your leadership. I see the educational component that's in the bill. It talks about our colleges and our community colleges. With the bright minds that are out there today, with our young students in high school and certainly in vo-techs, is there a way that perhaps they can be embraced somewhere along the line and considered as we move this bill along?
Well, I think that that population will be part of the process. When you take a step back and think of how the partnerships are going to form, who are going to be parties to those partnerships, we fully expect for the community college sector and the career technology or the vocational students involved in that to be a big part of this, because when you look at some of those entry or middle level skills jobs that we know we need to fill, they're the ones who are already in that pipeline. So we're expecting that as these partnerships form and the industries determine what skills they actually need help on, as they start to look for candidates to fill that training pipeline, we have populations out there already.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add, along the marketing, following up on what a number of the members said, there is a provision in the bill that provides for the creation of an easily accessible website we call Train Maryland, for all these opportunities to be available for people to find them. And then also there's an uncodified section that talks about Dollar working with individuals who are applying for unemployment and providing them with information on the program.
Mr. Secretary, when I met with you earlier in the week about the bill, one of the things that I had an area, not a concern, but the fact that we're getting ready to roll out the Affordable Care Act in 2014, and states like Massachusetts have already rolled out these things. One of the things that they found was the shortage of the healthcare delivery system to provide healthcare for everybody that's now going to be entitled to healthcare. And we're able to get one of the grants from the federal government through GWIB to look at the whole healthcare network to see if it is adequate for this ACA. And they have noted some deficiencies within the whole healthcare delivery system. And I know that there's a ranking of this about, you know, the most, because it's going to be ranked competitively. Is a sense of urgency. I mean, I think you're going to identify a lot of areas where you need job training. But when you look at the urgency of 2014, is that going to weigh into the factoring of who the grant's going to be provided to?
Senator, that would definitely be part of the equation, because when you sit down and write the specifications for an RFP, you have to list what the panel or what the group is going to look for. And when you have certain deadlines out there to meet, then that has to be part of the equation. And we know that with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, they were part of that are those community care centers that they're developing that are supposed to be spread throughout the state. And we know that there are going to be some training challenges to ensure that those centers can adequately connect with their communities. And that would be a sector, part of the sector that's ripe for this initiative. And especially since they have that deadline to be on the ground and operational, that would definitely be considered.
And one other point is the property of the training. You know, if a partnership is developed between an energetics company with a community college to provide technical training for engineering technicians, for instance, you know, and that training course can be duplicated. Who you know, to other community colleges or whomever. Who has the ownership of the training package that may be developed? Does that belong to the partnership?
That's going to be on a case-by-case basis. I've been involved with some of these before, especially in my brief stint over at the Department of Human Resources. The ability to control that intellectual property really depends upon who creates it and the contractual mechanism that you have in place. If say that there's an initiative that a sector wants that's going to just tap into what a community college is already doing, well, that curriculum is there. They're just sending them to class and they'll get their certification, so that belongs to the community college. But if something is being developed specifically that comes from state funds, then the state will have a role in that. As you also see in the bill, though, there's going to be some additional weight given to those industry partnerships that have either an in-kind or a financial contribution to the process as well. So this will be part of the the real business negotiations type to see exactly by rights of the state as being the grantor who exactly has that right. But that's part of our process to figure all that out.
And my last question on page 7. It's an area that hasn't been discussed a whole lot. One of the things that you're going to do is you're going to be developing develop and implement a strategic plan for employment advancement for state workers. And that's part of this. You want to just talk a little bit about that?
Our initial thoughts on that are we know that we have one clearly identified need that the governor has spoken on many times, and that's in the procurement area. When we talk about this, it makes sense to explore areas that are finite in number, because obviously we have a lot of state employees, and we don't want to be in the process of rolling out a statewide training initiative, because that will easily take up the majority of the funds. But we know we have a critical need in our procurement practices and policies, and you can go agency by agency, and they'll tell you that we could really have our procurement staff be better trained at what they do. And it makes sense to explore procurement and any other areas where a targeted population of state employees could have a very broad impact overall.
Any other questions for the panel? If not, thank you very much, especially Governor, for coming over.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, it was a very important piece of legislation. We intend to go over it and hopefully get it voted out shortly. Okay, in favorable? Okay, let's get up the Governor's second panel. Martin Knott, Kirkland Murray, Jason Perkins Cohen, and Scott Jensen. Jason, you want to lead now?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jason Perkins Cohen. I am the Executive Director of the Job Opportunities Task Force. We're a nonprofit. Our mission is to help low-wage workers advance to high-wage jobs. You've already heard a lot of testimony. I'll keep it brief. I do want to make sure that we are very strongly in support of Senate Bill 278. I can just point out that the Job Opportunities Task Force was really created about 15 years ago based on a study that several people who would be eventually the founders of JOTF completed called the Job Gap Study, which, as the name would indicate, found that there was a huge gap between the skill level of workers and the skill level required of many jobs. And we have spent the last 15 years trying to address that gap and shrink it. So not surprisingly, we are very enthusiastic. In addition to our work here in Annapolis, we are an on-the-ground organization that works with direct service organizations that provide training. And so we know exactly the challenges that many of those organizations face, that they do terrific work, but more investment is needed. And attached to our testimony is a brief brochure that highlights several sectoral strategies around the state. There's only a few listed. We couldn't list them all. But we wanted to give you a flavor of the type of sectoral strategies that are already out there doing good work. But again, additional investment means that more people would get trained. The reason sectoral strategies work is because they allow businesses to build training and educational programs that are geared to the needs of employers, but at the same time, they allow workers to get that credential that they need to get their foot in the door and move up. So again, we asked for your support of Senate Bill 278.
Let's go next.
Please, ma'am. I'll go. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Kirkland Murray. I'm President and CEO of Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation. We're the workforce entity in Anne Arundel County. And I'm here to support Senate Bill 278. I really encourage the passage of this bill. We really support that this is a industry sector focused piece of legislation that will help industries create jobs and help put Anne Arundel and Maryland citizens back to work. Passage of Bill 278 will support Anne Arundel County in offering workforce training to new and incumbent workers in cybersecurity. Bill 278 will also allow Anne Arundel County to develop strategic partnerships with the business community, the public workforce system, the community college, high schools, and other nonprofit organizations that do workforce training. Bill 278 will also allow us to support efforts that have been led by the Fort Meade Alliance for innovative programs like Project Scope that helps with security clearance, which has been one of the difficulties that we've had in Anne Arundel County and increasing our workforce. Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation has found creative, innovative ways to meet the workforce needs of Anne Arundel County and support Marylanders. This bill will just give us additional resources to continue doing that work. I really encourage your support for this bill, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Scott, you going next?
Chairman. My name is Martin Knott. I'm the president of Knott Mechanical. I'm also the chairman of the Maryland Economic Development Corporation and the chairman-elect of the Governor's Workforce Investment Board. I'd like to thank you all for having me here today to speak on behalf of this important bill. My experience over the last 6 years at the Governor's Workforce Investment Board has taught me one thing, and I think it's the most important aspect of this bill, is that we need to reconnect our education systems and our employers so that we can bridge the gap of the skills that are needed by employers so that when somebody graduates from a program at our community colleges, our apprenticeship program, through our career and tech ed system, and in our 4 years, that they are ready for a job with an employer here in Maryland. And we've recently worked on this type of stuff is already existing. I'm also the chairman of the Maryland Center for Construction, Education, and Innovation. We recently unveiled policy recommendations to the Governor's Workforce Investment Board and also to the industry. We had over 300 guests in attendance back in November and went out and surveyed the industry to understand what the needs of the industry were and then communicate those needs to our partners in the education system. This is absolutely critical. The only way that we're going to ensure that people are job ready is to talk to the people that are getting the jobs. And I think that this bill, and I applaud Senator Klausmeier and the other Senator Miller and others who are behind this bill, because that is so key. There is, I believe, a disconnect between the business community and the education system. And at the Maryland Center for Construction, Education, and Innovation, we've proven that we can close that gap. The policy recommendations that we made back in November are going to be implemented. They were applauded by our partners in the education system. And this bill will provide funds for us to be able to go out and take advantage of the recommendations and bridge some of those gaps very quickly, specifically for the construction industry. But I know that we're not the only industry that needs upskilling. The manufacturing industry, as was just talked about, also needs upskilling. And this is the way that we're going to ensure that gap between those that are unemployed and the job openings that are out there in the economy, so that we can close that gap. So I could go on and on about this for hours, but I really feel as though I've learned an awful lot in the last 6 years as it relates to workforce development and what we need to do as a state in order to ensure we have the strongest workforce. But I will leave it with those comments and take any questions. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and fully support this bill.
Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott
Pull the
Jensen.
microphone close to you, please.
Scott Jensen, Deputy Secretary of the DLLR. I'm here mostly for questions, but I did want to highlight one of the things Secretary Howie talked about in the previous panel, and that's the healthcare part of this. Mr. Chairman, your observation was very apt, and we have been working very closely with Carolyn Katraki is here.
We have a letter of support.
And you have a letter of support from her and Secretary Sharfstein as well. So that is a ripe area for us to use this initiative to help implement the Affordable Care Act.
Any questions of the panel, committee members? Just a few.
Yeah, I just hope that as we look at these grant programs, I'm just going to repeat the same thing basically, is that we don't continue to just look in one particular area or to the people that we know. And oftentimes I've seen it across the board, especially in various jurisdictions, where the same people get the same grants all the time, and that they're not putting forth the kind of workforce that we really need. And because we know specific people that get the same grants for workforce development, we're not going to train them, and there's no follow-up to make sure that those people go on work. Or they train for certain folks or certain organizations that don't really qualify. And as a result, they've done all these trainings for certain groups of folks, and they can't get the job because of certain things. And so I just hope that we're not going to continue to do so.
And one of the best things about this bill, and with the help of Senator Klausmeier and this committee, frankly, is we need your help as well to make sure that we're convening the right people and talking beyond our circle.
Senator Kelly?
As you do your regs to really implement, I do hope additionally that you're going to have performance audit requirements in there to really see what happens and the extent to which it happens, and when we're finding need for improvement, that people get a certain amount of time to do so, and then you check back to see if the corrective action has made a difference.
Senator, that you'll notice in the bill there's a reference to state stat, and it's too bad the governor's not here because he could really speak to it. But this is going to be static, and
but we want the governor's statisticians to keep looking, but the General Assembly also needs to have a look.
No, and that's absolutely right. And one of the most important things about accountability in that front is we need to communicate better. I mean, to see Secretary Howie and Secretary Murray up here talking the same language is because of the person who is in between them, making sure that that collaboration happens. So in it, we do look forward to being held accountable.
Okay. Any other questions? John, thank you all very much. go to the front. Kim Russell. Paul Bales. Bale, excuse me. Gigi Godwin. Jeffrey Smith. Linda Dwork. Dan McDermott. I'll fill the table up. And Eric Sellersnow. Okay. Why don't we, since you're all individual, why don't we start right to my right and just proceed right on down the table.
Thank you. I'm Dan McDermott, the Executive Director of the Upper Shore Workforce Investment Board. I'm here today in my capacity as the President of the Workforce Investment Network of Maryland, which is comprised of the 12 workforce investment areas. We fully support Senate Bill 278, and we admire and applaud the commitment of our state leaders to taking a look at this piece of legislation and hopefully passing it and implementing it. We look forward to whatever role we end up playing in the implementation of legislation, and look forward to working with the work group, Dollar, DBED, and others to craft regulations and roll this out. We're very excited about it. There's very little that I think I can add to what's already been said, other than to tell you that this was the easiest concurrence that we've ever gotten of all 12 workforce investment directors in Maryland. It was very easy to get concurrence, so maybe that's an indication of how strongly we believe that this is something that should be done.
And there's money attached to it.
Well, whether it was a penny or the amount of money, we're on board.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Mellon. I'm a graduate student at the University of Maryland School of Social Work, and I've been given the privilege of working on a workforce development project as my field placement. So as a student, I'm just going to share a couple things I've run across since August when I started this endeavor. Workforce development is a maze. It was completely new to me, but as a student dedicating my time exclusively to workforce development, I found it to be challenging. There's not much of a coalition or coordinating system, and a great deal of my time has been spent calling programs to see if they still